Detective Comics 1100, Tom Taylor writing, with MIKEL JANÍN on the art. Of course, I am referring to the main story with that pair of credits. We'll bring up the other credits as we get to the other stories. This is an oversized, anniversary or special issue because it's 100 that they've hit, which is fair enough. They always do it. They tend to do it for all the 50s as well, to be honest. But maybe go a bit more all out for the 100s. So the main story is interesting because obviously we just finished an arc with 1099. I had to think about the number there. So this was kind of open to maybe be the start of a new arc, but Taylor's not done that. Taylor will start his new arc with the next issue, presumably. Here, he gave us effectively a one-shot that is silent. There is not a single bit of dialogue in the entire story, and it's all about Batman, taking out this thug that was kind of like, that ran into a kid, and this kid happened to be putting up Lost Dog posters. So it's a story about Batman using the Bat Hound to find this lost dog, and it's all played out in silence. And at one point, he makes you think that the dog is dead and in a box, and that's what he's going to go tell the kid. But then it gives you the happy reveal that no, the dog's in the box, the dog's alive, everyone's happy. And the little bit of humor there is that the kid, because the poster said reward of $6, because that's what the kid's got, he insists in paying Batman $6 for finding his dog. I mean, we know Bruce doesn't need that money, but he doesn't want to hurt the kid's feelings, so he takes it. And yeah, the reveal at the end is just that, hey, he's found a bunch of lost dogs and cats over the years, and he's kept every single poster in a little section of the cave. So it's just kind of this sweet story about Batman looking out for kids, which is a bit more heartwarming than your typical Bat story. So how did you feel about this, Matt?
Also should be noted that the kid has a hearing aid, so they're playing off of that.
That's right, yeah.
We see the
sign language there. Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Yeah. And Bruce is speaking with him in sign language. So when he goes and gets Ace, and he gets like a toy from the dog, from the kid, so Ace can jot it down. And yeah, I like when there's a gimmick like this that works really well, because you have MIKEL JANÍN doing the art. So all the faces are very expressive. You know exactly what's going on throughout. And I love how it breaks down. It almost, they feel like storyboards at a certain point. So yeah, this team works very well together, so it should come as a surprise. But yeah, it was a very nice, heartwarming Batman story.
Yeah, I mean, there's like some other nice little beats in there. Like after the first encounter, the kid goes out and tries to draw a big bat logo on the road to like as a signal, and almost gets hit with a truck, and Batman swoops in and saves him. But then communicates with the kid, gets the backstory about how the dog got kidnapped, and because it turns out some thugs kidnapped the dog for nefarious purposes, and then obviously Batman goes on his search, and it's all told throughout the art. It's all very expressive, like you said. The layouts are nice and clean. Batman has a big fight sequence over a page or two when he gets to the bad guys, and that's, fun. And you feel there's almost a little bit of extra anger because they stole a dog from a kid. So that it's a bit more, I would say personal, but there's a bit more heart in it than perhaps normal. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the mom, when he goes to drop the dog off, didn't you think the dog looks a little bit like Gail Simone?
The dog?
No, the mom.
You said the dog.
No, I said when he goes to drop off the dog, doesn't the mom look like Gail Simone?
I'm pretty sure you said, don't you think the dog looks like Gail Simone?
The slight delay might have gotten me, but I definitely said mom, not dog.
I don't know. People comment below. Did he say, does the dog look like Gail Simone? I can kind of see what you mean. I mean, she's not a one-to-one, but the haircut's definitely reminded me of Gail Simone, so yeah, I can see what you're saying.
The red hair, the haircut, this type of glasses, which, as much as I love their rivalry, I feel like Taylor and Gail are pretty close friends. So, to throw her in at Batman 1100, that's pretty fun.
I feel like if it was like a proper Gail Simone like homage, though, there'd be a bear somewhere in this issue.
Absolutely. Like when he named the bear Gail earlier on in the arc. So, but yeah, no, very, very fun story. And like you said, the kid paying Batman with the reward money, another sweet topper. You know, that's kind of silly because we all know Bruce doesn't need the money.
Yeah, he also doesn't.
Kid's a man of his word.
He also doesn't charge anyone else for his Batman, you know, like tasks. Like it's pretty free of charge across the board. But this kid's like determined to pay up. He's a kid of integrity, shall we say? I mean, yeah. Honestly, the biggest dramatic point is the few pages where it kind of tries to convince you the dog might be dead in the box, and I'm like, Batman, why are you taking a dead dog to the kid? You're going to traumatize him.
It was like, what has Traum ever done bad? Look at me.
This will put bat hair on his chest. He'll be a little crime fighter in no time. But no, it's a sweet story. He pets his own dog as he puts up the Lost poster with all the others, and it's a kind of a sweet little moment. Yeah, he went for heartwarming. He chose to do a heartwarming one-off for 1100, which is cool. Honestly, one of the things about this, and I'm sure I said this when it popped up in the solicits, is like usually when there's like an issue like this where there's a main story and there's like multiple backups, right? Because that's the type of book we're looking at here. It's a 50-page book. There's 3 backups. Normally, like your talent across the backups will sort of vary quite wildly, and there's usually one at least you're like, I can't be bothered with that person. But this is Mariko Tamaki, Greg Rucka, and Dan Waters. Like, I when I looked at that front page and saw all those names, I was like, well, I guess I'm settling in then, because I don't think any of these are going to upset me.
I really feel like they came out swinging for 1100 more than they did for 1000. You know, so good on them.
I mean, they did like a 100-page thing with all sorts of stuff
but
for
like
1000.
Right, but as you said, it was kind of scattershot with those things, you know. Here we got Tom Taylor, Mariko Tamaki, Dan Waters, and then Greg Rucka, you know. So if didn't Dan Waters do the detective not Fear State, but the Dream, the Nightmares? There we go. I think he did the detective one tie-ins.
That sounds right. I think he did the 2 detective Night Terrors. I can't believe you're even bringing that. Do you know,
these are
do you know what, funny, Matt? I've been cataloging because I hadn't been doing it in a few years. Like all the comics I've read, because I like having stats because I'm a weirdo, and I was like putting in things from like 2020 onwards, and I'm like, Tomasi had a detective run? I don't remember that. We did that in the show. I read every issue, and I couldn't tell you a single thing about any of it. So,
well, I was going to point out, I also feel like these, you know, the 3 that do the backups are also people that have worked a lot on Detective Comics, you know, and maybe not with Waters, not a lot, but there's at least that in there.
I think you're reaching to say they've all worked a lot on Detective. I think it's maybe more broad to just say they've all worked with Batman to some extent, you know, because Waters is doing another Batman, arguably the best Batman book right now. Tamaki had a nice big chunky run on Detective a few years ago. And of course, Rucka was doing, you know, Batman stuff way back. And in fact, hell, I've been reading some of his No Man's Land issues just this past week. Like, he's been writing Batman stuff for decades. So, you know, they got kind of an all-star team of mostly modern, but Rucka's kind of the old guard out of the batch. But anyway, so the second story here is all about Batman's out dealing with the Joker, but the actual framing device of the whole story and what we're actually hearing dialogue from is all this fancy gala dinner that's to honor like citizens in Gotham who have done good things, like, you know, they're basically getting humanitarian awards or things like that. And Bruce Wayne's supposed to be there, and the people around his table are kind of like making fun of him a little bit, and he's not there yet. He's late because he's off being Batman. But they're making fun of him because, like, oh, Bruce Wayne paid a big check and that got him an invite to the dinner. Because, you know, they're celebrating, like, later on we see, like, an ambulance driver that he saves as one of the people getting a medal at this thing, right? It's people who have done good things for the people of Gotham. And obviously the end point is ultimately they're making fun of him, and he kind of mutters something under his breath, but ultimately just kind of says, yeah, I'll write a bigger check next year. That ought to do it. But obviously, like, you know, the irony being is that we know he's doing more for Gotham as Batman than just about anyone else could possibly muster up. So I mean, if anything, I'd probably summarize this story as kind of like the side of Batman is that he can't really get the recognition for what he does from the city, you know, as a person, because he can't, like, you know, say, hey, I'm Bruce Wayne, I'm Batman, I do it all. So it's all about kind of just the fact that he has to kind of like pretend to be like an asshole who doesn't do anything in his public life, but he's actually, you know, off saving people constantly and deflating things. So I think that's the thing that stuck out to me about all the stories in this, is they all felt like they were kind of trying to, and a lot of specials do this when we get to anniversary issues, but they all feel like they're trying to like tackle just a sort of broad part of Batman's character in like a sort of nutshell. And this felt like one of those to me here.
Yeah, I like at the end where the guy that he's talking to is, you know, running for city council and is like, oh, I'm gonna make things difficult for you and your rich friends and whatever. And Bruce reaches out his hand and it's all wrapped up from the damage he's taken, you know, chasing Joker, you know, and they shake hands anyway. So I like that subtlety too, of the, you know, this might be a rich man, but his hands are dirty, but not in that type of way, right? Not like he's on the take or anything, but you know, the bandages around his hands show that he's doing something. You know, he's not just showing up and writing checks. So,
it's like hidden just beneath the surface, I think, is the point, because the bandages are there. He's showing up late because he's been out doing stuff. Like, you know, it's just underneath that surface that no one else can see. I mean, you know, this is kind of a compliment given the talent in this book, but I think AMANCAY NAHUELPAN, who's in the art for this story, is probably the weakest start of the book. But, you know, it's got some pretty stiff competition from JANÍN and who's coming up later, so I wouldn't read that as too negative. It's definitely the one that's the most house style out of all the stories in here. It feels like the most typical of art for what you typically expect in a modern superhero comic. But it was pleasant enough. There's some fun action art because part of the Joker thing is that there's a bit of a bike chase where he's chasing Joker on a motorbike, and Joker ends up crashing into this ambulance, which sends it flying over the bridge, and Batman has to like dive down and get her, you know, before she goes out of the water. You know, it's a nice set piece. You know, because we never get context for any of this action stuff. It's all just kind of playing out in silence as we're getting all the stuff from the other scene, which is the dinner party and people wondering if Bruce Wayne is going to show up and kind of critiquing him and whatnot. So, solid story. So that was the second one. The third story is called Knife and Gun Club, and this is the Greg Rucka story with Álvaro Martínez Bueno on the art. Gorgeous, obviously. Just as soon as you see that artist name, you know you're in for a good time. It's very moody, and the entire conceit of this one is that it's set at the emergency room, just on a random night in Gotham, and this one doctor is going for a break, and she's kind of frustrated because, you know, they keep having to deal with bruises and broken bones, and she, you know, makes a couple of comments about, oh, how many more is he going to send in here? And she's like being kind of critical, and she's being kind of anti-Batman in her attitude. But when she goes to the break room, this other doctor's in there, sitting in the dark, and she's like, hey, when did you transfer here from, you know, I think it was Midway City? And she's like, oh, like 7 months ago. Was it? Oh, you're still pretty new. And this older doctor basically says, hey, I remember when I started here. Like, every night we were dealing with knave stab wounds, gunshots, and it was all, you know, it wasn't just the gangsters, it was civilians, and the cops were kind of some of the biggest perpetrators of them all. And ultimately basically saying, hey, it's great that all we are doing is treating bruises and broken bones. Like, Batman has changed what we are treating on a nightly basis so much you have no idea.
Yeah, the worst thing they're dealing with now is concussions, you know? And so it used to be gunshot wounds and stabs, and that's where the doctor, they called it the Knife and Gun Club when you're working overnights, because that's what mainly you were dealing with those type of wounds, you know? So it was like, yeah, no, he's made a difference, and like, yeah, you might not agree with him, but even just how we're dealing with these people is a lot, I don't say easier, right? Because you probably deal with a lot more of these type of things. But yeah, it's not the same type of severity.
Yeah, well, I mean, she even says, like, it's not like there's never a stabbing or a gunshot wound. Obviously, it still happens occasionally, but it's not this sort of frequency, this Wild West that it was before Batman showed up. So she, you know, basically sticks up for Batman and makes it clear that, you know, this is, you know, better than it used to be. And then the ending of the story, when she leaves the room, the younger doctor that is, Batman's actually in the corner in the shadows with like a wound in his shoulder, and this doctor's patching him up. And the story just ends with her saying, "You know, you do make a difference, right?" And he says, "It's easy to forget that sometimes." And that's kind of how it ends. It's just kind of a sweet little ending of like, you know, Batman's in the never-ending war against crime, and like sometimes, you know, it's something that comes up a lot. Is like, has Batman made a difference, or is it just this never-ending cycle? And this person who's like on the front lines of like the results of what the city was before and what it is now is like, no, you've made a difference. Things are unequivocally better. Like, there's no denying things are better than they were before.
And I like the fact that it's a new doctor, right? It's not Tompkins that we're used to seeing. You know, Bruce dealing with almost as his personal doctor. So this is someone that works at, I would say, like Gotham General, you know, and so it kind of was also in that vibe of Gotham Central, which shouldn't come as a surprise because it's RUCKA.
True, yeah.
And that we're getting Batman from the perspective of the doctors instead of the perspective of the cops, which I like. I really like when RUCKA brings that differing perspective. And like you said, he does make a difference. You know, the doctors even are noticing it. So it's like the impact of Batman here. Yeah.
It's something that really helps build him up as like a myth to the reader, because it's like we're getting these perspectives of people who live in the city rather than just always following what Batman's doing and how he's problem solving and fighting people. It's like, no, here's how his impact is spread amongst the normal people. So, and like you say, there's a good comparison here between this and Gotham Central. It's just a different part of the city that's, you know, given their viewpoint on him effectively. So hey, if we get a Gotham General series for a bit with Greg Rucka writing, I wouldn't be complaining.
Well, and even Bueno's art is almost reminiscent of Lark's, who did Gotham Central. You know, with the kind of like it's a little bit more I don't want to say watercolory, but the coloring is a bit different. Like, I always felt like Gotham Central was a bit more pulpy. This doesn't have that pulp kind of vibe. A lot more clean style to it. So it did make me miss Nice House, though, you know, because seeing this art here and that type of stuff. So, you know, but I would definitely take a RUCKA Gotham General book. That'd be real cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Nice House, like, you know, it's on its break halfway through the story, which it did for the first series as well, to be fair, so I don't think it's anything to worry about.
I'm just saying I miss reading it just because, you know, at least, even if I don't know what's going on, the art always hits, right? Like, you know, as the story's unfolding, so... No, the art in this was gorgeous. There's just kind of a moodiness to it because there's all these heavy shadows, and I mean, not even just once they get into the darker break room, but even like out in the, like, you know, the front, and they're bringing in the stretchers and stuff. There's just kind of a, you know, you can it really gets across how tired the doctor is. Like, she's taking off the bloody gloves and throwing them in the trash, and you know, everything's just very, you know, it feels very lived in a way where it doesn't just feel like a clean comic book, and I like that. So that's the RUCKA story, which was excellent. And then the final story by Dan Waters, art by Bill Sienkiewicz, is called The Fall. And unsurprisingly, this is the one that's the most, we'll call it ethereal, I guess, if you want to put a word to it. Because the premise of this is basically just like really simple. It's Batman's chasing a serial killer. Who the serial killer is doesn't really matter. Unknown, new, whoever. But he's chased him to the end of a beam on a big walkway at the top of a building, and the killer basically goads Batman to jump after him, and he lets himself fall off. And most of the story takes place as we're diving down, you know, to the bottom, to the ground, and it's basically just Batman narrating in his head as he's going through his thought process and describing the fact that the killer, you know, is taunting him. He's like enjoying this. He's enjoying the rush of getting near the bottom. But there's a turning point where eventually that turns to fear. Even the killer, who's kind of, you know, he's a psychopath. He's been killing people. He thinks he was going to enjoy this. There's a turning point where all of a sudden that build-up, that rush of adrenaline and momentum in his stomach is going to turn this into fear. And the art here for this is just phenomenal, where it's like a bright white version of his face that just kind of, it's almost like it's shaking in the art. It's a weird thing to say, but it looks like it's shaking. And it's like he's trying to swim in the air because he's getting scared. And I love this thing it does in these pages is, as soon as they jump off the belt, actually, it's from the very first page, actually. But at the bottom,
of every single page, there's a thin panel that's in red that's just showing the bird's eye shot of the street, like looking down. Yeah. So it's almost like it's always showing you, hey, this is where we're going, this is where we're going. And it's just getting a little bit closer each time. Not much, but it's just getting a little bit more zoomed in with every single page. Really well. So obviously Batman's pulling out his grapple gun and he's going to try and like catch him. But it ends in this really ambiguous moment where he's like, he fires his grapple gun and the final page is just this close-up of the killer's face, and it keeps going closer and closer into his sunglasses, which are just bright white circles, and they are. And it just says, I reach out, it could be enough. This close, the concrete isn't grey, it glitters. And we don't actually know if he does it in time. Like, it ends on a cliffhanger. You don't know if he catches him or not. He might be dead. End of story.
Yeah. Because there's even doubt in most of Batman's narration where he's talking about, like, as the serial killer's trying to swim through the air, he goes, that resistance might be enough to make the difference. Yeah. You know, I might be able to get to my gun quick enough, the grapple gun. So, yeah, so there's all this doubt, and then it just ends. And I turned the page just instinctively, and it was the end of the book because, you know.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, man, okay, this kind of got dark.
Yeah.
Why is it glittering? Like,
I know, I get it. If you imagine like concrete after it's been raining, right?
Yeah.
It looks glittery. Like I get like I get the visual anyway, but I think what this is getting at, other than just, you know, the literal of what's happening, is this idea of Batman's entire war in crime is this like endless struggle, which, you know, might never succeed kind of thing. So it's like he's going to try anyway. He's always going to try. Sometimes he will succeed, sometimes he'll save the person, sometimes he won't. But there's something really poignant about the person he's trying to save here being the bad guy, like being the killer, who is enjoying what he's doing until it turns to fear at the last possible few seconds, where he's like, oh no, I might have made some mistakes. Like, you know, Job from Arrested Development, no. I've made a huge mistake.
I was like, oh no, the consequences of my actions. Because yeah, again, this guy doesn't fall. He essentially jumps.
Yeah,
he lets himself fall.
Yeah, he just topples over the edge. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a smile on his face on that page when he goes over. So, you know, as that smile turns to fear, and again, it's just Dan Waters is one of the best people doing it right now. You know, which makes me want to go back and check out some of the indie creator and stuff just to see how, because only have really read his Nightwing and his Batman at this point. So, curious to see where it goes. But yeah, this whole thing with Batman's doubts and the way Sienkiewicz arts works with it. It's some fantastic stuff.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'm noticing as well looking through it is that after the initial jump, right, so you don't actually see his face. Right, so you see his face as he's about to fall over, right, and let himself fall. And then you don't see his face again. It never cuts to the killer's face until the moment where it turns to fear. That's when you see it for the first time again after that, or the next time. I think that's a really interesting choice. It's not like we're seeing, like we're hearing Batman describe how he looks before that point, but we don't see it until he turns to fear. And then the way the art is drawn is so gorgeous and nightmarish. It really looks like a, you know, something like from like a David Lynch nightmare or something. The way it's, you know, it feels, you know, ethereal is kind of the word I used earlier. Maybe like, I don't know, like oppressive and like it's all these things. It's just it's nailing all these kind of vibes and atmosphere.
Yeah, that it's ethereal but also gritty in the way that Sienkiewicz can, right? So like it's dreamlike but it's sharp, you know. So like there's these contradicting things in the art that make it unsettling, which I guess would make it Lynchian, right? So yeah, man, a good team up. I would like to see like a whole, you know, an issue like this, you know, of Waters and Sienkiewicz, and really see what they can do together.
I mean, Waters is on an ongoing right now. It's not impossible that Sienkiewicz might end up on an arc in Dark Patterns if that can happen. But no, I mean, this was really simple, obviously, but like it was just such a great like vibe and experience, and then ending on that kind of really ambiguous, you know, like does he do it or does he not? And then the fact that the final panel is just a black panel that describes what concrete looks like as you're about to hit it, but we don't know if he actually does hit it is quite interesting. I mean, you could argue that maybe having time to process how it looks maybe implies that he's been grabbed at the last possible second and he's staring down at the concrete. But I don't think you need to read it that way or whatever. I think it's very open for a reason, and I like that it doesn't give you the answer. So, no. Very good. Honestly, as far as like special anniversary issues go, like this is probably one of the best ones I've read because I didn't dislike a single story in it.
Yeah, no, this one was really strong. And yeah, I thought that the table was set really well with Taylor and Yanin. So, and for them to all follow through. And I would say even the Tamaki one, which is still decent, it's probably my least favorite just because it's so typical of what you would expect in one of these.
Yeah, it's
almost.
I mean, it's the weakest
Batman in the community. Yeah,
it's the weakest, but it's not like it's up against some really tough competition in comparison. Like in a regular anniversary style issue, like that would have been one of the standout stories, but because it's up against a Greg Rucka Batman story and it's up against this cool ass like weird nightmare-ish like short story from Dan Waters, it's a tougher thing to compare to. But like if that's the floor for your anthology issue, then we're in a pretty goddamn good place. So I'm pretty pleased with this. Yeah. So I have nothing to really say other than it's great. Obviously, I went through the plots really quickly because the first one, because there's no like narration or dialogue, it is quite simple relatively to describe it, and then all the other ones are all a bit shorter. So yeah, it was very quick to go through the stories, but lots of great vibes as I was reading it, and sometimes when you pick up a book that's 50 pages, and you're so used to reading 20-page issues of comics, it can feel a little bit like, oh, this is going to feel like a bit of a chore compared to normal. But because that first story had no words at all, and then the other ones flowed very well, like I barely felt the extra length, honestly.
No, I read this in 2 parts. I started it when I was at work, and then I finished when I got home. And I kind of forgot, because reading it digitally, like when I'm reading it physically, you can kind of always feel how much more you have to go. I got done with it, and I was like, there was no way this was 50 pages. Just because of how quick I got through that first one. And then the last 3, because that's where I had stopped, was after the first one. I was like, oh man, I thought this was extra size. And I look at the page count on the reader. It was like, oh, we're good.
I mean, it's very easy to take a break in a book like this, though, because there's natural chapter endings to kind of like, take a break on. But anyway, what are you giving Detective Comics 1100?
I give this an 8.5.
I think I'm happy to go with a 9. I think it's an excellent anthology issue, and I think that Greg Rucka story tips it for me into that 9, because that's kind of the cool vibes and stuff that I really like about when he tackles Gotham in some way. So no, I'm glad Rucka's writing stuff again. I know this was only just one short story, but he's got that other miniseries that he just started, so I'm glad that we're getting Rucka on a somewhat regular basis again. It's nice to have.